on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwoods. Welcome to the Kaged Review, and now that I'm done with the Batman series, we are moving into the Spider-Man series, followed very soon by the Superman series. So I'm working them all in here, man. I've actually only got like one real big series for comic book movies left, and then just some like sporadic movies here and there for DC and Marvel. So all that being said, Spider-Man, Sam Raimi, that is the director. You have Toby McGuire coming in as Peter Parker or Spider-Man. You have Rosemary Harris as Aunt May Parker, Cliff Robertson as Uncle Ben Parker, Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson. You have James Franco as Harry Osborn, Willem Dafoe as Harry Osborn, who becomes the Green Goblin. You also have cameos in all three movies by Bruce Campbell. And in this one, he's actually a ring announcer for a wrestling match between Spider-Man and Bonesaw McGraw, who was played by Randy Macho Man Savage. I thought that was a great cameo. I really loved it from both Bruce Campbell and Randy Savage. So this is the origins of Spider-Man, Peter Parker. And it goes into all the backstory of him going on a school field trip where they're doing testing at Oscorp on these radioactive spiders. Of course, one of them gets loose and bites Peter Parker. He starts getting all these abilities. He starts kind of, fighting crime in his way. And so there was a lot of cool things that happened there. One bad thing that happened is him and his relationship with his uncle were starting to get strained because his uncle didn't understand that he was actually turning into Spider-Man. And so there was this one moment where Spider-Man sees this ad in a newspaper for winning big money for a wrestling match. And so he goes and he takes on Bonesaw McGraw. And then he gets shorted after the match by the guy running the show. And so the guy, Peter Parker's like, I need that money. And the dude's like, well, I don't know where that's my problem. So this guy comes in and robs the take. And so Spider-Man, being spiteful, just lets the robber go. And the robber's like, you could have taken that guy out easy. And now he's going to get away with my money. Peter Parker's like, I missed the part where that's my problem. Throwing daggers, but then that guy winds up coming out and killing Uncle Ben, who was out at the same time. And so Peter Parker comes out and he sees Uncle Ben. And now he's pissed and he goes after the robber. And he finds him in this like abandoned warehouse where there's this like face-off between the two. And of course the robber's not going to get anywhere. It's fucking Spider-Man. And so he winds up getting freaked out, scared, trips over this pipe, and falls out a window to his death. And so this makes Spider-Man question a lot of things about his powers and himself. And I did kind of like that part of it. And of course, throughout all of this, you have the fact that he has this huge crush on Mary Jane, and Mary Jane is kind of slowly taking notice of him, even though she's dating this absolute douchebag, who happens to be Flash. And so there's that. And then, he becomes Spider-Man, and as he evolves, he's like, even though he really cares about Mary Jane and wants to be with her, he has to keep her at arm's length to protect her. Same thing with his aunt. And so, at the same time, you have Norman Osborn, who is working this arms deal with the government. Isn't it always an arms deal with the government? And he's got these gliders that they're trying to use in these like super suits, but they're trying to figure out a way to enhance soldiers so that they can, be physically superior to everybody. And they got this serum that's supposed to work. One doctor said he really didn't agree with it though. They need to take it back to formula. So Norman tries it on himself. And one of the side effects is it kind of makes him crazy. And so that's exactly what happens. He gets this dual personality, the Norman Osborn, and then this thing that essentially becomes the Green Goblin. And Willem Dafoe, I heard, really pitched for this role. Like, at first, the studio wasn't going to use Willem Dafoe, but Norman fought to get it, apparently, because he really believed he could do something with it, and I don't think you could have picked a better person. Like, some of the acting involved in this was very, very, very good. There was one scene where Norman Osborn and, like, the inner Green Goblin self were, like, having this debate, and they used a mirror reflection to kind of set the two apart. You know, the shots on Norman Osborn were Norman, and then the shots in the mirror were the Green Goblin. And his facial inflections, mannerisms, the way he spoke, everything was really creepy. Like, really, really creepy. It was a great job from Willem Dafoe. And plus, it just got his name to a much wider audience because, let's face it, a movie like Spider-Man is going to be seen by a lot more people than, you know, an indie movie. Even though they can be more artfully done, this is just going to get your name out there. And he's already been in Platoon and stuff like that. But for today's audience, I think it was a great, solid move for Willem Dafoe. But he absolutely killed it. And so there's this, you know, idea that he has this big face-off with Spider-Man. And he eventually decides he wants to try to team up with Spider-Man. And, you know, the point was, like, imagine what they could do together. Of course, Spider-Man rejects him. Through the fight with Green Goblin and Spider-Man, though, Peter Parker gets his arm cut. And so very shortly after that fight, there's a Thanksgiving dinner where Norman, Harry, Aunt May, Peter Parker, Mary Jane are all there. And Norman notices the cut on Peter Parker's arm, and he puts two and two together. And so he starts going after Aunt May first and then Mary Jane. And he's using them as pawns to get to Peter Parker, which of course works. You have this big face-off at the end where the Goblin tries to kill Spider-Man by using the glider to spear him. It's got this big blade in the front of it. Well, Spider-Man jumps over it, winds up impaling Green Goblin, killing himself. So Spider-Man drops off Norman Osborn's body at his house, where Harry Osborn sees Spider-Man drop his dad's dead body off. And now he is telling Peter Parker at the funeral that his goal is to kill Spider-Man, even though his best friend in Peter Parker is actually Spider-Man. So there's that duality there. There's also that duality there with Peter Parker, you know, being in love with Mary Jane and wanting to be with her, but knowing that he can't because he's always going to have enemies. And he even says that at points in later movies. And so I thought it was a really fun movie. The big criticism that I have with this movie is that, much like the original Batman series, this did have a lot of campy parts. It was still treated kind of like a superhero movie from back in the day, which weren't taken completely seriously. It did have some cheesy dialogues, some cheesy moments. It was taken more seriously than the Batman movies, though, obviously. And I did like this better than any of those. So, overall, I would probably give this an 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, had some great action sequences. I do like some of the development they had. So, yeah, not a problem at all. So, 8 out of 10, that's where I'm at. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz, Kaged Nation, out.